Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrived in Venezuela on Tuesday as part of his tour of Latin America and the Caribbean and held a press conference with the Venezuelan counterpart Iván Gil. In Nigeria, 79 people have died because of cholera so far this year. The Sudanese army and the rapid support forces, which have been fighting for control of the country for 4 days, agreed on a 24-hour ceasefire. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm your new anchor, Heidi Maurel, from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrived in Venezuela on Tuesday as part of his tour of Latin America and the Caribbean and held a press conference with his Venezuelan counterpart Iván Gil. Lavrov met with his Venezuelan Foreign Minister Iván Gil and with Vice President Delcy Rodriguez before holding a press conference with local and international journalists. The head of the Russian diplomacy is also expected to meet with President Nicolás Maduro, who will receive him at the Miraflores Palace, the seat of government. The Venezuelan head of state pointed out that during Lavrov's visit, all the cooperation issues between Caracas and Moscow will be evaluated, which exceed 300 agreements on trade, energy, agriculture, food, technical, military, among others. Lavrov's arrivals in Venezuela is part of a Latin American tour that began in Brazil on Monday and which will last until April 21st, a trip that included Nicaragua and Cuba. After the meeting with his Venezuelan counterpart, Sergei Lavrov and Iván Gil held a press conference with local and international journalists.
We have signed more than 300 agreements between both nations. Today, with Foreign Minister Lavrov, we have reviewed these aspects. We have made a commitment to continue advancing in all the aspects I mentioned before, especially in the energy aspect, which is very important, the financial aspect, the air and maritime interconnection aspects, as well as the commercial aspects. We have also seen the progress made in terms of the financial information exchange system, creating an alternative to the international SWIFT company. Our central banks have been working with the Venezuelan agricultural food producers, aspects that have to do with the regulations to increase the export and import of food.
During the press conference, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stressed that Venezuela is one of Russia's more reliable partners and that relations between both nations are based on similar point of view regarding international issues.
We also talked about the situation in the international arena. Venezuela is one of our most reliable partners in the world. We are united by the strategic partnership, which is based on conceptual closeness about the international agenda, and also on the ties of friendship and mutual sympathy. Our relations have been tested by the crisis, and they do not depend on the current political situation. We cooperate in the international arena, and we are committed to the basic principles of the United Nations and the equality of the peoples.
In Argentina, a court of appeals and guarantees in San Isidro, Buenos Aires, has ruled that Diego Maradona's death case must be drawn to trial. 8 people, a neurosurgeon, a psychiatrist and psychologists, 2 doctors, a nurse coordinator and 2 nurses, all linked to the medical care received by the ex-football player, will be tried for the alleged crime of simple homicide with gross negligence. The San Isidro's Court of Appeals and Guarantees unanimously rejected the petitions for nullity of the process and the change of legal qualification of the judicial case. A few days after Maradona's death, Argentine prosecutors began an investigation and found that the ex-football player's medical team had acted in an inappropriate, deficient, and reckless manner. The 8 caused will face a 25-year prison sentence if found guilty. On Tuesday, the Ecuadorian President Guillermo Lasso assured during a press interview to the Financial Times that he would use the resource of dissolving the parliament in the face of a possible impeachment trial. In an interview granted to the British media, Lalso assured that he could dissolve the National Assembly and call for election if he does not gather enough support among legislators before a possible impeachment hearing. This week, the impeachment proceedings against Lasso entered a new phase with the appearance of witnesses. A total of 40 people, including public officials, assembly members, constitutionals, criminal lawyers, and journalists, will give their vision of the proceedings against the president, accused of embezzlement. The World Bank revealed in a recent report that Costa Rica has the greatest increase in poverty in Latin America. According to the report, some 5.5 million people are living in poverty, which is coupled with a growing inequality in the distribution of income. These issues are eroding the basic pillars of the Costa Rican development model, which are inclusion, growth, and sustainability. The Institute of Economic Science Research of the University of Costa Rica said that in late 2022, poverty in Costa Rica rose to 24 to 25%, slightly above the 23% estimated by the Costa Rican National Statistics Institute. And let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok account at the teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Farmers' organizations in Haiti denounced on Tuesday that more than 400 homes were burned down in Montrose, a town in the northwestern department of Artibonite. The organizations also pointed out that the area has been under tension for weeks due to a land dispute between the farmers of Piatre and the Luye, resulting in dozens of deaths, including the lawyer Andres Manuel Lopez, killed by armed gangs in the town of Piatre. The farmers' movement revealed that many people fled their homes and called for urgent intervention from authorities to resolve the situation. Meanwhile, Mayor's office in Montrose issued a statement calling on those involved to take the path of justice to settle the situation, stating that they live in a state subject to the rule of law. President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador denounced on Tuesday that the Pentagon spies on Mexico and the Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, distributes information to conservatives. In his morning press conference at the National Palace, when he questioned about the decision of the Supreme Court of Justice not to allow right-tipping without its authorization, the president addressed the latest clashes within the northern neighbors. He defined the differences between intelligence as national security and espionage for other purposes, and said that the government's duty is to protect its information as a matter of national security, including the Ministry of Defense, the Navy, and the National Guard, in relation to leaks published by the U.S. newspaper, The Washington Post, of discrepancies between these entities. AMLO asserted that the Pentagon and the U.S. DEA are spying on Mexico, with the latter distributing information and supplying it to the conservative Mexican press. The U.S. almost 5 children up to 17 years of age are killed in gun violence and more than 11 are injured daily, according to a report of the Gun Violence Archive. According to the source, so far this year, 520 children and adolescents have died and 1,262 have suffered injuries due to firearms in a country where the number of mass shootings has risen to 164. More than one tragedy in which young people lost their lives has taken place in the Union over 100 days. Among the deadliest is the one that occurred last month in the city of Nashville, Tennessee, when an armed woman entered a school and killed 3 9-year-old children. Also last week, 4 people were killed and at least 15 teens were injured as a result of a shooting at the birthday party in Alabama. According to the research analysis by the Pew Research Centers, the number of children and teens killed by the gunfire increased by nearly 50% in 2019 and in 2021 in the United States. The study detailed that in 2021, 46% of all fatalities among the very youngest involved black victims. A 3-story parking garage collapsed Tuesday in Manhattan, New York, leaving at least 1 dead and 5 injured. According to preliminary information, the incident occurred around 4:15 p.m. local time when several floors of a parking garage in Ann Street between Nassau and William Street fell in. Members of the New York City Fire Department say they are conducting search and rescue efforts and using the necessary equipment to remove the rubble and evaluate the collapse. Mayor Eric Adams said at the news conference that 4 of those hurt in the cave had been hospitalized, but did not specify the nature of the injuries and that 5 persons have declined medical attention. Fire officials asked that building inspectors examine the properties, structural stability, seating shaking and vibrating at the garage. teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat. Dial 461 and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Nigeria, cholera has killed 79 people so far this year, out of 1,333 suspected cases of the disease. According to the Nigerian Center of the Disease Control and Prevention, the 12 states most affected by the acute diarrheal disease include Abia, Bauchi, Bayelsa, Cross River, Ebonyi, and Kano. Yadinsa, Niger, Ondo, Osun, Sokoto, and Zamfara are also included, the source said, noting that of the total suspected cases, 53% are male and 45% female. In order to contain the current outbreak of the cholera, the National Multisectoral Technical Groups was activated and called on the population to consume safe drinking water and maintain adequate hygiene measures. In Tunisia, opponents of the government of President Kais Saied have denounced the arrest of the leader of the Ennahda party. A spokesman for the Ennahda party said that the Rachid Ghannouchi, one of the main critics of the Tunisian president, is the last one in a series of arrests of opposition leaders. Police raided Ghannouchi's house on Monday evening to arrest him, and he has been transferred to El Owina detention center. Ennahda party Vice President Mounder Lounisi said that Ghannouchi has been interrogated and his lawyers aren't allowed to be present.
On this month of Ramadan, on the 27th day, a large number of policemen from the Owina garrison raided the house of Rachid Ghannouchi, president of the Ennahda movement and Speaker of Parliament, to arrest.
On Tuesday, the Sudanese army and the rapid support forces, which have been fighting for control of the country for 4 days, agreed on a 24-hour ceasefire starting at 6 p.m. local time. However, clashes were again reported around the army headquarters and near the nearby airports, two important combat areas since fighting broke out on Saturday. Fighting also took place around the strategic air base at Merowe, some 350 kilometers northwest of the Khartoum. More than 185 people have been killed and more than 1,080 people injured since fighting began on Saturday. According to UN figures, however, there's no final toll. The Sudan Doctors Syndicate added on Tuesday that at least 145 civilians have been killed and more than 1,400 injured. The Sudanese army initially rejected the truce proposal, claiming that a crushing defeat of the security forces could take place in the coming hours. In Palestine on Monday night, thousands of Muslims gathered at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in East Jerusalem to celebrate the holiest night of Ramadan. The faithful celebrated Laylat al-Qadr, which means night of power or night of destiny, with prayers and fireworks. The Muslims asked for their prayers to be answered during the events, which is the held of the 27th day of Ramadan. The faithful fired the narrow streets leading to the mosque in the hills of Jerusalem, Old City, home to the third holy shrine for Muslims. According to estimated, some 208,000 worshippers attended the festival. Meanwhile, in Saudi Arabia, millions of worshippers filled the great mosques of Mecca and Medina on the 27th night of Ramadan. People arrived late on Monday and stayed until Tuesday, listening to the imams, praying and seeking the Kaaba. The long-awaited event marks the Laylat al-Qadr, the night of the first revelation to Prophet Muhammad of the Al-Quran, the Muslims' holy book. Ramadan, in addition to its religious aspect, stands out for its social atmosphere that gains more than strength during the night, after the hour of breaking the fast, an atmosphere that we expose in the following material for correspondent Hisham Wanus. Let's see.
Nightlife in Ramadan becomes a real social party where the vast majority of families, after the long hours of fasting during the day, gather at the home of one of its members to chat and have fun, or go out in groups to markets, restaurants, or recreation centers, which open their doors until late at night in this month.
This is the true atmosphere that reigns during Ramadan in Syria, which is an atmosphere of joy, hope, and faith, that Syria will return to the way it was before, and possibly better than it was before, and the resurgence of these nightly social traditions of the blessed month of Ramadan is an example of this. These customs have been interrupted due to the war, but now that security has been restored, people are once again practicing these traditions in an atmosphere of joy and peace.
The brotherhoods of the whirling dance of the Sufi whirling, the whirling dervishes, or mevlevi, as it is known in Arabic, mark a special presence in the nights of the blessed month of spiritual purification. The dervishes use the whirling as a meditation technique until reaching trance, union with the divinity and fusion with the whole. It is a sacred dance based on respect, tolerance, and love to release stress and reconnect with the most transcendental simplicity of life.
This dance is an essential part of our religious culture, and our duty is to preserve this heritage and teach it to the new generations, because through the spins, in addition to meditation and purification of our souls, we consolidate the link between us as human beings and our God.
The dance of whirling is one of the main night traditions of the month of Ramadan, as it is a sacred and religious dance accompanied by the recitation of religious poems, and people are very happy when they see this traditional dance.
This festive nighttime atmosphere has been interrupted for more than a decade due to the terrorist war imposed on Syria. Today, after restoring security in large areas of the country, these traditions, characteristic of Ramadan, although affected by the blockade, are re-emerging again in a clear message of defiance to all terrorist attempts to paralyze life in Syria.
Hisham Wanus, teleSUR, Damascus, Syria.
And with this story, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I am Heidi Maurel. Thank you for watching.